Sunday school teacher had asked her class, what does church mean to you? What's church like for you? And of course, kids are kids, and they're giving all kinds of silly answers and making each other laugh. You've probably been in that Sunday school class sometime in your life. And they went through the different answers, of course. And finally, this one girl who's kind of new to Sunday school, hadn't only been there but a few weeks, raised her hand, and she said, I think that coming to church is like walking into the heart of God. Wow. That is a profound statement, isn't it? I love that. Walking into church is like walking into the heart of God. Fantastic, right? Can I get an amen to that?
Amen.
Amen. Amen. But what is walking into church like walking into the heart of God? I think it should be, don't you? Don't you? That would be a great feeling, wouldn't it? And what would we find in the heart of God, do you think? Compassion, kindness, hope, mercy, forgiveness. Love, most importantly, love. Those are all things that we would find in the heart of God. That's at least what I think. You may have some other words you want to add to that, but I think that kind of covers it as a general thing, right? The general statement. And I guess the question is, do we find those things in church today? Is that what we find when we walk into church? I would like to think people walk into our church and that's what they find. I would hope that's what they find when they come here. I've certainly been in churches, sometimes that was hard to see. I've had to really struggle to find it. I grew up in a church that was more about fear and judgment. I mean, I grew up, thinking that God was about, there was a God up there and he was watching me and he was just waiting with that lightning bolt, and as soon as I messed up, pow, he was going to get me. There's Kenny stretching the truth. Pow, I mean, that's kind of how I grew up as a child. I was afraid of God. I was afraid he was a God of judgment. I heard some stories about in the Bible, how he had Sodom and Gomorrah and fire. I knew all that stuff. And I didn't. And all of those stories are true, and there is a judgment. It's not the whole story, is it? How many of you grew up in a church where you were afraid of God? Were you ever afraid of God? Maybe I just had the only church that was like that. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not calling any names, and I'm saying, but I gotta wonder, whoever thought that was good news? Whoever thought a child being afraid of God was the good news of the gospel? Because what I found out as a teenager was that wasn't the good news. The good news was that Jesus had come and died for me, and he wanted a relationship with me, and he wanted to be personal. And that he loved me, and that he knew me, and he knew my mistakes, and he knew my frailties, he knew my weaknesses, he knew my failings, but yet still he wanted a relationship with me. But yet still, even in my imperfection, I know, look at me, that's hard to imagine, but it's true. Even in my imperfection, God still wanted a relationship with me, that I was still worthy. That is the good news of the gospel. That God loves you. You, and 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 you. I don't want anybody to feel that. You, all of you. He loves all of you. And if we go outside, I can go down the street and everybody I encounter, he loves them too. That's the good news of the gospel. But do we reflect that in church? When people walk in, they feel that good news. They feel that acceptance. They feel that love, that kindness, that compassion. That's what we have to ask ourselves. And if not, why not? And if so, good job. And I've certainly I've been in a variety of churches in my lifetime, and I've been in churches, some that, a lot of complaining. You ever been to a church like that? A lot of complaining. Or at least it seems like a lot of complaining. The music's too loud. The preacher preached too long. It's too hot. It's too cold. Yeah. All right, I'm stepping on that. I'll stop. Starting to hit some nerves out there, I can tell. A lot of complaining. Or at least it seems that way. It reminds me of the story of a man who came and this guy owned a farm, and he came to the restaurant and said, "You want to buy some frog legs?" He said, "I got 1,000,000 frog legs, I say." And the guy's like, 1,000,000 frogs? He said, "Where are you going to get all these 1,000,000 frogs?" He said, "I got them all out of my pocket. I hear them every night." He said, "You want some frog legs?" I said, "I'll bring you 1,000,000 frog legs, you buy them." The guy said, "Well, let's start off with maybe 100. He said, "All right, I'll bring them to you next week." Next week, the man shows up, got 2 sets of frog legs. And he said, "What happened to the 100 legs?" He said, "Well, I thought there was 100, but there was only 2, just making a lot of noise." You know, sometimes that's how it is in our churches. It seems really loud and like there's a lot of fussing, but it's just usually 1 or 2 folks who don't even realize what they're doing. Sometimes it's just in their nature. They need something to complain about. I know folks like that, trust me. And they just need something to talk about. But more than likely, for the most part, I think churches are filled with good people. People who love and people who care about other people. And I don't think we should let the complaining be the loud noise. I think we should let the joy of Jesus Christ and that relationship be the good news and the voice that's heard out there. You know, we need to speak up. We need to be assertive. We need to have smiles on our faces. So I'm going to give you this opportunity. If you don't have one, put one on there. There you go. Now we're smiling. See, that's a much more receptive crowd than me when I see you smile. I don't have to keep looking at you wondering who's going to pull the gun out and start shooting. You know. But we're meant to be an encouraging church, right? And if we think those elements of compassion and kindness and love and hope and forgiveness are in God's heart, and we want them to be what our church represents, where does that start? Let me go back. It starts with you and 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 each and every one of you. Because who's the church? You're the church. Church isn't this building. This is just where we gather. Preacher's not the church. He's just somebody appointed to get up and speak. The church are you good folks. Without you, there would be no church. There would just be a building. I pass buildings like this all on my hour drive here. I pass several of these buildings. Covered with ivy, and where people have stopped gathering. They're not churches anymore. They used to be churches, right? See, you're the church. So if we want that kindness, that love, that compassion, which is what I think God created churches to be, kind of centers of encouragement to people, right? A place where people come and feel rejuvenated. A place where people come and get built up. Not torn down. Not beat up. I know sometimes I'll step on your toes, but it's just because you look like you're sleeping. All right? But for the most part, I try to build you up. I try to give you some insight into things that perhaps we need to be doing. And I think one of the biggest things that we can do is to mimic the heart of God. To become centers of encouragement. You know, Jesus never left anybody worse off for having met him, didn't have he? No. He met them wherever they were, in the midst of their suffering, in the midst of their pain, wherever they were, and he lifted them up. As followers of Christ, we're called to do the same thing. We're called to lift other people up. We're called to be that light in the darkness, that ray of hope in the midst of despair, that love in the midst of hate. We're called to be different. I like being different, in case you hadn't noticed. There's not a normal thing about me. You can ask me. I'm just a non-normal kid. And I'm okay with it. Because God made me this way. Right? And he made each and every one of you this way. And perhaps the best place to start with encouragement is for me to let you know how much you mean to me to be sitting in those pews. To come in here week after week, to gather as a family, to worship God. It means something to me to see you out there. It's encouraging to me in my ministry to see you sitting in those pews, to have you play the piano, to share your gifts of singing, special music. Everything, every person in here is important to me. And I know you don't think I miss you when you're not in your seat. But I know who's missing. I know when you're not here. When your seat's empty, I know it. I see it. And maybe it's my fault for not letting you know how much you're missed when you're not here. But you are missed. You're an important part of this machinery we call Ledbetter Christian Church. You're an important part of the message of the gospel. Each of you is important. Each of you is unique. Each of you brings a special talent. Each of you brings a special perspective. Each of you brings something that God has given you to share amongst this community, but also out in the world. You are special. Say it, I'm special. I'm special. No, say it like you mean it. I'm special. I want you to know it. Say, I'm special. I'm special. Feel it. You are special. Say it. You're special. You are special. You are. God has made you special. Extraordinary. There are all kinds of words we can use. One of a kind. Often in that's me. But you are special, and you bring something special to the table. And when you're not here, it's not the same. You know, I can remember a story of a church that decided they were going to build a new house of worship. And they went about it, and they built the church, and it was a beautiful building inside. And the day came for the opening, and they moved from the old church to the new church. And as they came in, everyone was given a lit candle. And they were gone to their seats. And the minister started talking and telling them about the constructions and telling them that the candles were symbolic of a lot of things. One, bringing the light into the congregation, and how important it was that the light be present during the congregation. Even more so than they knew, because they had run short of money and there were no lights in the congregation. Now, as the church stood fully aglow, with each person holding their candle, it was very well lit. And someone raised their hand and said, "But Pastor, what happens if we're not here? Won't our section of the church be dark? Won't our section of the church be without light?" And the pastor said, "Yes. Yes, it will." You see, each of you brings a light to this place. Something special. Something that lights up your section of the church. A love, a glow, a warmth. And it's important that you're here. Not just for you, but for your neighbor. You know, we've lost some folks this year. And church isn't the same. But they didn't choose that. When you're not here, you choose not to be here. And when you're not here, you rob us of that joy of seeing your face. And you may not look upon it that way. You may just say, well, if I'm here, I'm here, and if I'm not here, I'm not here, and it doesn't really matter. I can always catch Kenny's sermon on Facebook or on YouTube. I'm much better in person. Much better in person. You can't get the full gist of this on Facebook. You just get the few of the words. So come to church. The message is a lot. But in all seriousness, you're important. And we need to encourage each other. And we need the words to each other to be kind and uplifting. You know, there is a world out there that will tear you down. Most of us are old enough to know that. Most of us have been a part of that for years. When we let the world beat us up and tear us down and tell us what we couldn't do and not good enough for. But I'm here to tell you that's malarkey. You are good enough. You were good enough for God to send His Son to die for you. To die on a cross for you because He wanted a relationship with you. And if that is not enough encouragement for you, then there's something wrong. God made that sacrifice for you. And that's the good news of the gospel. That God loved you that much. That He cared about you that much. That you are that special, you are that worthy, you are that unique. That He would send His Son to die for you. That's special, right? Now, are you special? Are you feeling special? Because you are special. And when I said it, I meant it. I love each and every one of you. I think you're fantastic people. I truly do. And I think each of you is a gift to this church. And you're different. You're not all the same. Some of you are similar, but you're different. You're very different, but you're all God's gifts. And we need to treat each other like that. We need to mirror God's love, those things that we would find in God's heart, compassion, kindness. And parents, you need to instill those in your children. You need to show your children kindness and love and compassion. You need to build them up, because I'm going to tell you what, there's a world out there that'll tear them down. You don't have to go far for that. And aunts and uncles and grandparents and friends and neighbors, we need to build children up too. But it's not just the children we need to build up. We need to build each other up. We need to come here each week and say, "My, you're looking good." Is that a new hairstyle? No, it's the same old thing. You know? We need to lift each other up. We need to be each other's biggest fans. We need to hold each other accountable, because that's what families do. but still, in everything we do, show God's love, His kindness, His compassion, and His forgiveness, because sometimes that's necessary too. And everything that you do in love. And if you do everything you do in love, not from selfish reasons, but for godly reasons, putting God first, and doing everything in love, then people, when they come to this church, can truly say, I feel like I walked into the heart of God. And all God's people said, Amen. Amen.